welcome to episode 8 of Shift with Maddie. My name is Maddie, of course, and I am your host. Shift with Maddie is a podcast for the girlies in their figuring it out era. So I've just moved back from Australia. I say just, it's been like 3 months now, which is wild. But I've just moved back from Australia, moved in with my parents, and I'm trying to start this up for the first time. I've never done anything like this before. I started my podcast 8 weeks ago and I'm loving it. And I'm basically trying to share all of the information I've learned throughout the years from my psychology degree, from my own personal self-development, from other people, from professionals. I just want a platform where I can talk to the girls who are thinking that there might be something in their life that they want to change, or something where they're feeling a little bit stuck or a little bit unsatisfied, and they're just looking for, firstly, some tips, some tricks, some hacks, and secondly, maybe just a slightly unhinged friend to listen to every Thursday. So if that sounds like you are in the right place. Welcome to Shift with Maddie. I'm actually recording this one a week ahead because I'm going on holiday next week, if you're listening to this now. God, it's getting confusing. I feel like I'm in this sort of like timeless era. I usually record every single Monday and post on Thursday, but now I'm recording ahead of time. Where will I be at this time? I just don't know. But this episode has actually been inspired by a conversation I had with my friend yesterday. I went to meet my friend Jack from university yesterday and we met in Cambridge. Cambridge is such a lovely place, by the way. I haven't been there since I was 19, but it just feels like a little Harry Potter village. I love it. And we were having a chat about life, as you do. And I was saying about this podcast and about my Instagram page, which, by the way, is at Shift with Maddie. If you're not following me on Instagram already, please do. I'm doing a 30-day visibility challenge at the minute and I would love your support. But I was talking about how I want to move this page forward, and what I really want to do is turn this into a business at some point. And I kind of know the information I want to share. I'm not going to lie, I'm still figuring it out a little bit, hence the whole figuring it out era. But what I realised is that I didn't really have the vehicle or the packaging to be able to say everything that I wanted to say about how to change, about how to work through indecision, about how to create new habits. That's really what I'm passionate about. And I really want to find a way to communicate that. And he actually said to me, he had a similar conversation with a friend recently, not about a podcast, just like a general psychology conversation. And he said that he had found a formula. In fact, no, I lie to you. He said he heard this on a podcast. That's why he heard it. And he said that there was a formula to change and that he had listened and found it really interesting. So we sat there in the middle of the park and had a bit of a Google to have a look at this formula. And when I read about it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so fucking cool. This is the packaging I've been looking for, or at least a tool that will help me communicate some of the tips that I've been talking about. I'm still figuring out the packaging, I'm not going to lie. However, I immediately got excited, thought this was so cool, and immediately wanted to share it with you guys. So that is what today's episode is about. It's called The Formula of Change. And it is a very psychology-backed episode, this one. So I'm actually going to go into a lot of psychological theories and debates, as well as bringing in my own personal experience, as I always do, because I love a good yap, and speaking about how I've dealt with some of these things as well. And maybe you might relate as we're going through, and you might be thinking about a situation you're going through now, or you might be thinking about something you've already been through where you did choose change. But either way, I hope you find this as interesting as I did. So without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. So the formula I'm talking about has a lot of psychological backing, which I'm going to go into. But the formula is D must outweigh E plus B. And what that actually means is that in order to change something, whatever that might be, the current discomfort of your situation must outweigh the perceived effort that you need to put in, plus the future benefits of that change. So let's use an example of someone who wants to get into the gym. I know that's quite a common one. So if there was someone who was using this formula in that situation, the perceived effort of going to the gym plus the future benefits of going to the gym and what they're going to achieve from that has to be perceived as bigger or greater than the discomfort of their current situation, because that's why we choose to stay in the same place. If we link that to something I speak about in all of my episodes, which is the nervous system and how our automatic brain works, our brain will always favor familiarity. Our brain isn't primed to keep us happy, it's primed to keep us safe. We need to, in nervous system terms, find the discomfort of staying the same less safe than pursuing change. And I can think of so many experiences in my life where I have, not even knowing this formula, made that decision based off of those things. How easy am I going to be able to change? How am I going to be able to make this change achievable to me? Or what happens if I stay here? And I wonder if you can think of some as well, where you're thinking of a time where you made a change, or even a situation you're in now, where you're thinking, that's so true. Like, the reason I made a change is because the discomfort of staying where I was became too strong, and because I found that change achievable. And so I'm going to break that down a little bit more. And what I'm going to do in this episode is I'm going to have a chat about each of those three different things. So current discomfort, perceived effort, and future benefit. And I'm going to talk about my own experience with it, as well as things that I've learned from other professionals. So there's one thing in particular that I'm going to talk about, which I learned from a colleague, which has stuck with me for many, many years. And then things I've learned from podcasts, things I've learned from my degree, just various bits of information that I can give you that might aid you if you are trying to make a change. But before I do that, I'm going to go into a bit of the psychology of it, because as I always say, I'm a psychology graduate, I'm a psychology nerd, and I love knowing why things happen, which is exactly why I went to research this conversation that I had with my friend and turn it into a podcast episode. Don't mind me. So doing a little bit of research, I found out that this theory, or this formula, originates from psychologists called Janis and Mann, who came up with the decisional balance framework in the 70s. And what that basically said was, decisions work like a balance sheet. So when we have to make a decision on whether to change something, we will do a mental pros and cons list, kind of. That theory was then picked up by Prochaska and De Clemente. Oh, I definitely said that wrong. Wow. De Clemente? De Clement? Wow. You know what? Pretend I said that right. And they took that and made it into the stages of change model. And this is something you might have heard of before, where they used the concept of the pros and cons list, but they made that into a 5-stage model of how people change. And those 5 steps are: the first stage is the pre-contemplation phase, which is where you're not even thinking about change. The contemplation phase, where you're starting to feel uncomfortable. Some people call it the ambivalent phase, where you know that something needs to change, but you're not quite sure what, and you're in that sort of uncomfortable, stuck feeling. And then there's the planning phase, and this is the phase a lot of people get to and stop, and this is where they start planning how they're going to implement the change, but not actually taking the action to make the change at that point. That's all part of the process. Then there's the action phase, and that's when you actually start to take action towards that change. And then there's the maintenance phase, and that is what I refer to a lot when it becomes automatic and it becomes a part of your normal routine. And the way that works with the pros and cons list is that when you're in the pre-contemplation phase, pros of staying where you are outweighing the cons. So you stay where you are. The contemplation phase, that's when the balance sheet is looking pretty even. That's where you can think of reasons why you do want to stay where you are, but you can also think of reasons why you want to change. That's where you get stuck. That's where you're trying to logic your way between which one is the better decision. And then you have the planning phase and then the action phase. And this is when the pros of change start to take over. This is when you decide that the pros outweigh the cons and that it's worth it. It's worth the short-term discomfort in order to implement change. If you're watching YouTube right now, by the way, I'm shuffling around like no one's business. I can't get comfortable today. I don't know what's wrong with me. Also, I'm pretty sure I've broken my microphone, which is not good. So I don't know. Bear with me, everyone. I fixed the microphone. I was being dramatic. Carrying on. And then as I was reading this, I kind of got into another bit of a research hole. And the question I got curious about was, do you have to decide you want to change before you take action? Or do you take action and that cements the fact that you want to change? Which one comes first, the chicken or the egg, the identity or the behavior? So I went into a deep dive. And what's really interesting is that this is actually a live debate, just much like the chicken or the egg. It's actually still being debated to this day. There is evidence to support both sides. Some models, such as the trans-theoretical model, suggest that we need to change our belief before we change our behavior, and that actually our internal belief that we are the person who's going to do this is going to be the thing that drives our behavior. And this tends to be the dominant framing, I would say, especially when you come into coaching and therapy. But actually there's a counter argument to say that the action itself can create that mental shift. So things such as BEM's self-perception theory, where we do small actions, and then those small actions will prove as evidence that we are the person that is going to achieve this goal. And those actions actually snowball into the identity, and that's what creates that lasting change. And so the conclusion of that research is that I don't know, and neither does psychology. It's not known whether you have to change your mindset first or whether you have to do the action first. So my thoughts as a girly who's trying to change her life is, why don't we do a two-pronged approach? Let's do both. Let's do both and see what happens. Lol, I feel like one of those girls on Instagram where I've seen a couple of videos at the World Cup where they're filming the game and saying, if it was me, I'd personally just kick it into the goal, but what do I know? I feel like that's what I'm like there. I'm like, personally, if it was me, I'd just do both. Like, don't know about you guys. I'm sure there's more to it psychologically, but that's what we're going for. Let's try both. And finally, just to add to that psychology section, this has become the basis of motivational interviewing. And motivational interviewing is one of the dominant forms of coaching. So if you're going to life coaching, it's a very well-used model that is taught in a lot of the qualifications. And they call the process of balancing the scales in favor of change, developing discrepancy. So really highlighting the gap between where you are now and where you want to be, and where change comes into that. Because essentially, until we're uncomfortable enough in our current life, we will not change. We have to make sure that we're more uncomfortable where we are than where we want to go. And that's what this whole model and formula does. So that's my psychology section, just about where this model came from. I'm now going to have a bit more of a conversation with you guys and just share some of my own insights, or my own questions as well. Like I always say, I'm not an expert. I am someone who is also just looking to change her life and wanting to do that with a community of girlies. And my friend made me laugh. He messaged saying, I listened to your episode. It was good, but it's sad it's only for the girlies. And I was like, girlies is a state of mind. Anyone can be a girly here, okay? So welcome to the girlies. So I'm going to go back to the formula and go through those three things and how we can start to take action or think about how we can start to balance the scales in favor of change or in favor of gaining clarity over whether we actually want the change. So let's start with one side of the equation, which is the discomfort of staying where you are. This is something that I spoke about in my episode 1 all the way back 8 weeks ago, which is wild. That episode was called The Life That Didn't Fit, and I spoke about my decision-making process when I decided to quit my job, sell my house, and move to Australia. And I spoke about how uncomfortable I was feeling in my life and how for quite a while, actually, like this was not a quick process, but for quite a while I was kind of feeling like my life wasn't the life that I was meant to be living. And I had all the things I was meant to have. I had the friends, I had the job, I had the house, I had the fitness, I had the social plans, but I didn't have that sense of fulfillment that I really wanted. And when I look at it in regards to this model, it's quite interesting because I would say that that was my contemplation phase. And it wasn't until I actually went to visit my sister in Australia and visit my best friend in Australia that I moved into that planning phase where I actually decided I wanted to make the change. And I wonder if that was because when I went there, that made the reality of what I could have, so the future benefit, so much stronger, which in turn made my discomfort of staying the same so much more blatant. It's really interesting to look at that decision through the lens of this framework. And I talk a lot in that episode about what was going through in my mind at the time and how I finally made that decision. So if you are interested, then give that episode a listen. I think it's one of my shorter ones. I think it's like 18 minutes. And one thing that I've learned about the discomfort of staying the same through various podcasts and training is that our brains seek familiarity, like I said. So if we're just looking in the moment, the comfort of staying where we are is always going to outweigh the benefit of change. Always. If we're just looking at that one snapshot moment, that's what our brain is going to favor because it likes familiarity. So one tool that I've used before, and I think this really helped me both in my Australia decision and also in my romantic relationships when I was rewriting that, is this question. If nothing changed and I stayed exactly as I am now, what would my life look like in 5 years' time? And I found that a very confronting question. And I think especially with the Australia decision, now looking back as well, that was really what drove me to change. It was the fact that this discomfort, these waves of feeling stuck, like I wasn't living the right life, that I wanted something more, they had been going on for probably about a year and a half, maybe a year, before I visited Australia for the first time. And when I thought about that question and I thought, what is my life going to look like if I don't do anything? The reality is that I would still be looking back in 5 years' time and thinking, oh, what if I would have pursued a different path? And we all know the saying, you don't regret what you do, you regret what you don't do. And that's kind of what drove me to make that decision, because I realized that if I didn't do anything, if I look back in 5 years' time, I would always be wondering what if. And I just couldn't deal with that discomfort. So that was a real driver for me. And I wonder if there's anything you're thinking about right now where you ask yourself that 5-year question and you say, what will my life actually look like if I stay the same? And whether that increases that discomfort to slightly tilt the scales in favor of change. And the other side of this, by the way, like I always say, like, I don't believe that we need to be so focused on change all of the time. I know that sounds really funny from someone who is literally talking about change like her life depends on it. But actually, I've just been through a year or so where I just lived my life and I wasn't really focusing on any big improvements. I was definitely challenging myself and putting in little mini side quests, like running my half marathon, like doing my pole dance competitions. It's not that I wasn't focusing on growth, but I was really just focusing on enjoying my life, traveling, connecting with my friends. And we don't always have to be in this period where we want to change something. So when you're listening to this podcast, if you are in a period where you're like, well, I'm actually just happy with my life, Maddie, I fucking love that. Like, I love that. And I've been there. And I think that's really important, that we go in these waves of feeling like we want change and then letting ourselves settle for a bit. I think that's super, super important, or it is for me anyway. What you could think about with this future plan is, if you think, oh, what's my life going to look like in 5 years? And you're like, actually, it would look pretty good. If I stayed exactly as I am, it would kind of look like things I wanted. It might actually add clarity in the other way as well. You might be like, well, actually, why do I want this change? Is it because I think I should? Is it because someone else wants it and I'm just doing what someone else wants? It's kind of a good clarity tool either way. But for me personally in Australia, and again with romantic relationships, when I was like, what's my life going to look like in 5 years' time if I keep dating fuckboys? Not good is the answer. Not good, ladies. So I decided to make the change, but it could go the other way as well. So that's the discomfort of staying the same. The next thing, if we go to the other side of the formula, is the perceived effort of changing. And this one is basically, how hard is it going to be for us to actually change? Like, do we think that that change is actually achievable? So this one is really where your whole atomic habits comes in and about breaking it down. So I actually spoke about this last week in my morning routine episode, where the smaller the action, the better. And what I mean by this, and if you haven't read Atomic Habits, as I always say, please do. It's actually one of my favorite books. It really, really helps me think about change in a different way and my progress in a different way. If we're saying that action might actually build identity, then our subconscious isn't actually picking up the intensity of what we do, it's picking up the consistency. So if we go back to the fitness example, it's not judging how hard the workout is or if you beat everyone else, or, I mean, it might note that, but really what it's noting is I did something towards my health. I did something that makes me an active person. I'm the type of person who is going to be active. And our subconscious learns through repetition. So it is not about the intensity, it's about the repetition. And I think all of us have been guilty of this, myself included. Like I said last week, I literally had an episode of this. In fact, I'll tell you about it in a second in case you haven't listened. But we've all been guilty of being like, well, if I can't do it properly, if I can't do the big version, then it's not worth doing at all. If I can't go to the gym for an hour 5 days a week, then what's the point in even starting? And that perfectionist mentality, that all or nothing mentality, I think is the reason that a lot of people don't start, because they just think that what they're doing isn't good enough, or what they're doing doesn't actually make an impact because it's not big enough. And psychology actually suggests the opposite of that. It says that if you were to, let's use our fitness example again, if you were to want to get into exercise, and the most important thing isn't to do the biggest workout straight away, it is to create a habit of prioritizing your health. And if we're thinking about barriers to entry and the perceived effort of change, if we need to make that palatable in order to actually change our behavior instead of just thinking about it, we need to make it something that we think is achievable. And so that might even look like 5 or 10 minutes of walking every morning for a couple of weeks. But what that's saying to our brain is we're the type of person who prioritizes health. We're the person who prioritizes health. We're the person who's getting active. We're the person who's getting active. And that repetition, if you do it every single day, is going to build and build and build. And then once you get more confident and more assured that you are that type of person, your actions become bigger and bigger. And don't get me wrong, if you're a really active person anyway, you might be able to say, oh, I'm just going to go run a 5K right now, and that's fine. If that's something we will actually do, then that's great, like, do it. But the thing is, a lot of people will do it for a week or 2 weeks, and again, I'm not preaching from a mountaintop. I literally, this is why I have learned about this, because I kept doing this shit. I kept doing it. I kept procrastinating. I've had such issues with procrastination in the past, and I'm actually getting really good now. This is why I want to share this information. I'm getting really good at targeting my procrastination and actually doing the shit. I've definitely not always been like that. And sometimes still I'll find myself procrastinating. But if we're making these big plans and we're following through for a couple of weeks and then quitting and then going another month and then starting again and then quitting and stopping and starting, that should be a signal to us. That should be a signal that our bodies are rejecting that because they think it is too big an action. And so we can let our ego get in the way sometimes and be like, well, no, like I want to do this. I want to do this big workout. I'm not going to settle until I can do this big workout. Maybe I just need to wait until I'm feeling a bit better. Maybe I just need to wait until I'm less busy at work. Maybe I just need to wait until, I don't know, some pig comes flying through the window. I don't know what you're waiting for or what I was waiting for. But actually, the most important thing is that we actually fucking do something, no matter what that thing is. And like I said about my morning routine last week, I'm starting really, really small because I need to make sure I'm actually embedding that into my automatic brain. I need to make that something that I do without even thinking about it before I increase it. I need to become that bitch who can do 5 minutes of stretching and 5 minutes of affirmations before I can become that bitch that does a half-hour workout every morning. It goes in stages. And we might think, oh, but I want to achieve something by this date. But actually, if it's something that we've been putting off for months and months and months, or going around in circles for maybe even years, I've definitely done that, where I've been trying to start something for years and not done it. What's a couple more months to actually implement it properly in a way that's going to stick? And like I said in my episode last week, I literally found myself doing this with my identity work. I was putting it off quite literally 2 weeks ago, because I had made the task too big. I'd made it too much for me to do, and so I decided not to do it at all. And so I chunked it down and I made it even smaller so I could embed it in my automatic behavior. So that's the perceived effort of change, basically just make it smaller. So that's the first part of that formula. So the last thing is the future benefit, and the benefit that we perceive this change is going to make for us in the future. And this one actually links into something I haven't spoken about yet, which is surprising actually, because it's such a huge part of my life. But I use the Wheel of Life every single month to rate my life and to do a life audit to figure out where I want to prioritize or what I'm working towards, if there's been improvement. I do my reflections. Can't believe I haven't spoken about this yet. Maybe I need to do another episode on it. Oh, love this. Look at all these episode ideas. But one thing I've noticed is really important when you're doing any sort of rating system is that you have to have an idea of what a 10 looks like. If I say, oh, my career's a 3 out of 10, that doesn't really mean much unless I know what my 10 out of 10 is. If not, it's just like a number I've pulled up my arse, basically. So actually having a vision of what you want to achieve and who you want to be in the future, I find that really, really helpful. And I remember I joined this course and paid a lot of money for it, actually, with a girl on Instagram to build my business, to learn how to start the Instagram and personal brand and things like that. Was it worth the money I paid for it? I don't think it was, you know. But anyway, I digress. But she did do this really cool exercise at the beginning where she did a mindset bit before she went into the practical skills. And one of them was a guided visualization about your future self. And what I really liked about this and about other visualizations I've done is that it's not just what do you want to be, what do you want to have, what's this big picture. Like, what they do is they break it down. In fact, you know what, I'll record a guided visualization at some point so that I can kind of share this in a way so people can listen to it if they want to. because I haven't been able to find one that replicates it since, and now I don't have access to it anymore. So I'm going to record one at some point when I'm back from holiday. But what it says is, where do you wake up? Imagine that you're waking up. What do you smell? What do you see? What are you wearing? You walk around your room. What does it look like? You look in the mirror. Who are you looking back at? What outfit do you go on? What are you doing that day? Who are you hanging out with? How do you feel? Are you relaxed? And I remember this specific visualization was like, I want you to imagine the version of you that you're working towards. And I want you to see her very specifically in your mind. I want you to see exactly what she's wearing. And I want you to think about how she shows up in the world. What decisions does she make? What does she tolerate? What doesn't she tolerate? And being able to govern your behavior from that place. I find that really helpful. So having that really clear vision of who you want to be, because our brain doesn't deal well with ambiguity. It does much better with a very clear, specific vision. So if you can see that person, I find that really helpful. One thing I'm actually going to share about this is something I learned from one of my ex-colleagues. It's something that I referenced earlier. And this is something that actually really stuck with me to this day. Like, I still think about it, and I'll tell you my own version of it afterwards as well. But my colleague was a level 6 careers coach, so degree qualified careers coach. And she said that when she was in her training, her mentor told her something that changed her life forever. Now, this lady, she was trying to quit smoking. She'd been smoking for years and years and years. And she got told by her doctor that basically, like, she was going to die if she didn't stop smoking. It was going to be very bad for her health. And so she went to her coach and said, I need to stop smoking. And so her coach gave her this question and said, I want you to write down 20 reasons that you want to stop smoking. And this woman had tried to stop smoking for years, she said. So at first she ended up writing down things like, because it's good for my health, because my lungs will be healthy, because I might literally die if I don't, like all of these things. But as you get down to 7 or 8 reasons, you're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. And so she then started to say, I was getting very weirdly specific with why I wanted to stop smoking. And she said that one of her things that she wrote down was that she didn't want to be the smelly grandma. She wanted to smell nice like the other grandma. And when they looked at that list, the coach said, which one makes you feel the most? Which one made you emotional when you thought about that reason? And even though she had all of the big health reasons, the one that really got her in the feels was that one about her grandchildren. And she said, I don't want to always smell of cigarettes. I don't want them to think that I'm smelly. They always say that their other grandma smells nice, and I want to smell nice too. And that really specific reason became the reason that she actually stopped smoking. And she had stopped smoking. I'm getting goose pimples thinking about this. By the time I'd met her and she told me this story, she had stopped smoking for a long time. And that reason, the thing that she could visualize and the really clear outcome that she wanted, that actually got her to change something that had been stuck for years, let alone an addiction where there was chemicals and stuff involved. Like that's how powerful the future benefit can be. And that really, I was absolutely taken aback when she told me that story. I was like, whoa. And I've experienced something a little bit less dramatic, I'm not gonna lie. But I spoke about it again in, I can't even remember what episode, but it was about my reason for running. When I moved to Australia, run clubs are fucking everywhere. Everyone is running, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna start running then. And I started to go, and I was trying to motivate myself, why am I doing this? I don't actually enjoy running that much. I kind of do now, maybe a little bit. But I was telling myself things like, I want to stay fit, I want to be healthy, my friends go, it's a good way to socialize, I should be able to do this because I'm active, so running kind of just comes under that umbrella. But what I realized is, actually, I had a really clear vision of why I wanted to go to park run every week. And it's because when I have children in the future, I want to be that hot mum with the pram and the dog. And like I said last time, if you are one of them mums, then oh my God, I respect you so much. I'm the one watching you that's going to be me one day, running with that pram. Look at you lapping me with a bloody pram and a dog. That's my why. And literally this is the reason I go to park run. If I'm ever laying in bed thinking, oh, I don't want to go, then I'll think of that. Maddie, you want to be that hot mum. If you can't even get your ass to park run now, you're not going to do it when you're a parent, and you're going to be that mum with a pram. And honestly, it gets my ass out of bed. It gets me to park run, and it gets me to work. I can't explain. And to some people, That might be like, that does not motivate me whatsoever. And that's the point. Your why can be your really weirdly specific thing that gets you to feel something. And it doesn't matter if anyone else understands it, because who cares? It's about you. It's about what you want for your future. And as one last little supplement to this, one tip I got given as well is, if you are heading for a goal that doesn't feel aligned. So if, for example, let's say that you're training to be, I don't know, like a doctor. Maybe I just thought that because loads of my friends are doctors. But if you're training to be a doctor and you can't quite connect to that why, then zoom out and think about, what feeling is that going to give you? Is it going to be the freedom that you have when you're a consultant and you can pick your own shifts? Is it the fact that you want to work with the type of clients you want to work with every day? Is it the money? Is it the freedom that you're going to get from the type of money you get being a consultant? Like, thinking about why you actually want that and kind of zooming out, because a lot of the time what we think we want is actually just one vehicle to what we want. So there could be 10 different things that would get you to the same place. And it's that place you want to go. And you've just chosen one vehicle, which is great. It's great to have a goal. It's great to have a plan. But the thing that actually gets you to feel something is what you're going to have and the life you're going to live and who you're going to be as a result of getting to the location in your chosen vehicle. And you might even think, oh, there's another vehicle. There's another way I can get to that outcome as well. And that's one tip I've been given that I find quite helpful. So that brings me to the end of that episode. And I wonder if I was talking about that brought up anything for you. Like I said, whether that's a decision you made in the past, whether it's a feeling you're currently feeling. I would love to hear your thoughts on it if you want to drop me a DM at Shift with Maddie. Also, to summarize, because we went in depth with that one team, like we went balls deep in that psychology there, so thank you for joining me on my deep dive. But basically, if we're looking to change something, then the formula states that the discomfort of staying the same needs to outweigh the perceived effort of change plus the future benefit of change combined. And so I suppose the reason I wanted to do this episode is in case any of those tips we spoke about, any of the things I shared that I've learned myself, might help you tip the scales in favor of change if that's what you're looking for. Whether that's increasing the discomfort of your current situation to link your current actions to the version of yourself you'll become by staying the same. Or whether it's by reducing the perceived effort, by reducing the barrier to entry and actually making that a smaller, more achievable goal. Or whether it is getting really clear on why you want that benefit in the future, getting really clear on the feeling that you're searching for by making that change. If there's anything that you can do to get more clarity on the situation you're in, because like I said, I am currently in a situation now where I'm creating change. And actually, what is driving me to create a podcast and do this and dedicate my whole life to something that I don't even have a guarantee is going to work is that perceived benefit. It is the fact that I've broken it down enough to make it achievable. And it's so interesting because I put this off for 2 years. I actually started an Instagram account 2 years ago and just stopped after a few weeks. So I've known for 2 whole fucking years that this is what I wanted to do, and I've only actually put in the actions to work in that direction over the last 6 months. I say 6 months because I started a TikTok account on a different topic, and then I stopped that, and then I started this. But this one is the one that's actually stuck, and this is the first time I've actually committed to that podcast that I know I've wanted to create for so long. So like I said, I'm literally in the doing bit now. I'm in the action bit. I am absolutely not at the maintenance stage. I am at that stage where I am actively building something. And so all of this content I've spoken about has rung so true for me right now. And when I think about like my decision to Australia and my romantic relationships, when I had that conversation with Jack, I just felt so excited that this explained so much of what I try to communicate to people and to myself. And so I really hope you found this interesting, or you got some sort of benefit from this episode, because this is something that really got me going. I was like, I'm going balls deep in research here. And I'll definitely be delving into these types of topics in future episodes. Next week, I'm actually doing something a little bit different, a little bit risky, you might say, actually. I hope it's next week. If not, it'll be the following week, because like I said, I'm in a timeless ball at the minute where I'm pre-recording for my holiday. I'm going to France and Spain and Edinburgh and London. I'm doing a little bit of a road trip, so I'm very excited. I'll keep you updated on my stories at Shift with Maddie. But I am actually next week going to go on a bit of a tangent and tell you about some of my dating stories in my 20s. And I've actually done something quite interesting. In fact, I'm going to keep it a surprise, but I've mixed up the format a little bit to spice it up. And I really want you to get to know me because, like I always say, I'm so grateful that you're here figuring this out with me. Self-development can be a lonely road sometimes, and I just really hope that people can see some of themselves in my content or can relate to some of what I'm saying, or at least just feels like there is also another girl who is just figuring shit out. I think it's easy to look at social media or other people and assume that they've got shit figured out and that you're the only one who's sitting in this place where you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And I'm here to tell you that's not the case. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. No, I have some clue what I'm doing. I'm working towards it. But like I said, I don't know what the outcome is. Anyway, I went off on a tangent there. Next week, I'm going to be talking about my dating history, which is, I don't know if you're ready for it. I don't know if you're ready for my dating in my 20s. I always talk about my romantic relationships, and you're about to find out why I had to do that work. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy this, please do rate, review, and subscribe to my podcast. I would love that so much. And also, please share with a friend if there is someone who is interested in psychology or is currently feeling stuck in their lives or is trying to make change stick. Just share the love. I would love for them to be here with us as well. I will be back next week with a very different episode. Thank you for listening to Shift with Maddie. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Goodbye for now. Mwah.